Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to all councillors and the members of the public to this extraordinary full council meeting, and a welcome to the public watching on live stream via YouTube, and all those in just to go over a matter of health and safety. With no fire practice due tonight, so if the fire alarm goes off, please go out and stand outside the Chinese takeaway. And the toilets are outside on this first floor outside of these doors. This extraordinary meeting was called at the request from two councillors following the planning committee back on the 5th of February. And it was to consider the views raised by residents. And some of those residents requested that the parish council compel Southwater Guild CIO to withdraw its planning application DC 241997 for an all-weather 3G pitch at the Gill. Now, that is the reason why we're here tonight. I would like to remind everyone that this meeting is conducted in accordance with our standing orders, and we welcome public participation. The members of the public that have asked to speak will be I'll ask them up to speak. Our standing orders to make sure that we contain the meeting is that that members of the public can speak for 3 minutes, and therefore, I'm going to have to try and ask you to make sure you contain your speech within 3 minutes. Once the meeting, now that we're in the meeting, you'll realise that we can't allow a sort of a debate to go on because council is here to make a decision. So I'm going to start off first and confirm that all councillors have received the necessary papers to consider the item on the agenda. So can I have your confirmation that you've received and you've read and understood them? Thank you. And I'll remind you that the correct etiquette for requiring for this meeting is the counting and showing of hands. So that you can, you know where the fire exits are. It's out through the main foyer and entrance doors on the ground floor. So that is the only fire exit open at this stage. Now, I'll start the meeting off with the first item on the agenda, which is so we'll proceed with the public participation first, and all comments are directed at me. So, councillors, if you wish to ask anything, you come through me as well, and that contributions remain respectful and relevant to the specific items and business to be transacted on the agenda. Once public participation has concluded, the formal council meeting will commence and members of the public will no longer be permitted to speak. So I shall suspend standing orders to allow for the public question time. So can I ask, first of all, Michael Neal to come up first and give your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I am from trustee at the Gill CIO. The Parish Council were aware around February 2020 that the concept of a 3G pitch, as it's commonly known at the Gill, was in place, and the council at that time gave us our support and still do give us our support. The Gill charity was formed for which a business plan was produced, which was communicated to the Charity Commission along with the Parish Council. Subsequent to this, the CIO and the Parish Council entered into an agreement. No concerns have been raised by the Parish Council even now about the 3G pitch. The Southwater Infrastructure Delivery Plan prepared by the Southwater Parish Council via a community consultation carried out in 2022 highlighted the need for a 3G pitch at the Gill. The 3G project also aligns with the Parish Council's approved Southwater Neighbourhood Plan, which designates Gill as a formal and informal sports area under SMP 7, ensuring that its primary purpose remains community recreation and sports. This was supported by 83% of those residents of Southwater which voted. The 3G pitch project aligned with both of these approved Parish Council plans, both of which recognise the importance of maintaining and improving sports facilities for the health and well-being and enjoyment of the residents. What we're trying to do is to enhance the services supplied at the Gill for the community. This aligns with the agreements in place and the operation of the facility. The 3G planning application benefits the entire community by providing enhanced local sports infrastructure, by allowing greater access to the sports facilities and to keep activities in the village by offering a high quality weather-resistant surface, ensuring all year round playability, and reducing match and training cancellations due to poor weather. The Gill continues to improve the facilities to meet the needs of the growing community. Having heard that the PC is considering pursuing the Gill to remove the application, I'm not sure what this would achieve or even how it would be implemented, as it goes against everything the Parish Council have committed to. It would be contrary to the infrastructure plan, the neighbourhood plan, and the agreement in place with the Gill. I can only assume that if this is the direction that Parish Council agrees, then they intend to take back the Gill to operate it themselves, as, in our opinion, there is no legal justification under the agreement. It would mean that the trustees, who are all volunteers, have spent the last 5 years wasting their time, and the Parish Council would have gone against their approved plans. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that, Michael. Are there any questions from any of the councillors at this stage? No? No, right, okay. I'll move on to the next speaker, and that is Roger Froud. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. The Environmental Health Consultation document states the following. These types of sports facilities can cause significant impacts on amenity due to the character of noise associated with the pitch activities, typically shouting, whistles and ball strikes. And, quote, the noise impacts of sporting activities are better represented by the level of the peak noise events. And the proposed hours of operation afford no respite to local residents at weekends and evenings when it can be reasonably expected that they will wish to enjoy their gardens or have windows open. The viability of this development hinges on the ability to hire out this space for as long as possible. However, 3G facilities are largely unused until late afternoon, requiring late opening to be viable. Daily late opening is completely unacceptable to anyone living nearby. We've seen from the Cornwallis Academy 3G pitch in Kent that approval conditions should not be used as a device to gain planning approval. The use of whistles there was banned, then later overturned. Condition 3 of the Sports England consultation document states, the scheme will include measures to ensure the replacement of the artificial grass pitch within a specified period. They also require a financial plan, but I haven't been able to find one for the daily running, maintenance and replacement at the end of its short life. Would the Royals be expected to contribute a realistic sum for the hire? Are there sufficient funds to deal with cost overruns? Who knows? What we do know is that money has already been spent on consultancy and legal fees. Further expenditure will be necessary to answer the many questions posed by the HDC's own consultation documents and the inevitable legal challenges over the covenant. HDC's strategic planning document also includes this damning comment. The 3G pitch in itself is not suitable for the location. Unlike the grass, which has only needed mowing and reseeding for the past 38 years, this pitch is a temporary structure. We're in danger of being left with an unusable, worn-out white elephant with no funds to replace it. Local residents are not against the use of the field for football. However, the loss of the majority of this space to one small group is unacceptable, as is the shattering of the tranquility locals currently enjoy. The available funds would be much better used to drain the whole field properly for everyone's benefit. Half of the trustees of the Guild are also SPC members. I urge the committee to find a way to achieve the withdrawal of the planning application either here or when they are at the Guild. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. And the next public speaker is Helen Carter.
SPC's vision on open spaces says every public space has different uses and means different things to different people. A well-designed public space meets the needs of all the people using it without favouring one particular group. The Gill Field is recognised as an open space and a formal and informal sports field in the neighbourhood plan. And it is used for summer fairs, charity events, as football pitches for Southwater Royals, and for picnics, informal sports and walks. So it feels incredibly important that any development aligns with your open space vision. So, how does locking out the community and installing an artificial football pitch align with your vision for open spaces? How does it serve the needs of all the people who use the field? How does it avoid favouring the needs of one particular group? This proposal is utterly at odds with your vision. Its negative impacts are so profound and wide-ranging that 350 village households have objected to HDC and are wondering how it got this far. Councillor Moore tells us SPC signed away power to prevent development of the land under the terms of the Guild's licence, and that your governance now prevents you debating or commenting on the application. This amounts to tacit support for a harmful development. If SPC has no power as freeholder, then you can and must debate and comment. and protect residents from harm.
Helen, can I just ask you to conclude fairly quickly?
Sure.
You've gone over 3 minutes.
Okay. Openness and honesty have been lacking here. No consultation, followed by disingenuous messaging from the Guild trustees, Andy New and Brenda Holden, who told us on the 1st of February there is a binary choice between the 3G pitch and a housing estate on the field. I call on you to represent local residents. Remember your open space vision. Compel the Guild to withdraw the application or stand with residents against it, and bring the community together to find a different solution to the problems the Royals have with their field. Thank you.
The next public speaker is Mark Newman.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I live in one of the roads immediately adjacent to the Guild playing field. My wife is an NHS nurse and shift worker. We have 4 children, including a 6-year-old boy with learning disabilities. His name is James. My street is full of shift workers and young children, many of whom work for our public services, such as NHS and Fire Brigade, all of whom I'm lucky enough to call my neighbours and friends. From previous experience with football clubs, children like mine are not always welcome to participate. We do apply, but when disabilities are mentioned, we find communication breaks down, and when pushed, we are signposted to dead ends. So let's be honest, disabled kids like James wouldn't be playing on that 3G pitch. It's not only disabled children that will suffer harm from this. The older generation, people with reduced mobility, and people that have interest in other sports other than just football. We are privileged to live on a generally quiet street. However, currently on men's match days, the noise in mine and neighbouring gardens can hit between 75 and 80 decibels. Noise consisting of grown men shouting and swearing for 2 to 3 hours a week, normally on a Saturday afternoon. James, my disabled son, hides indoors during this time and refuses to go outside without noise-cancelling headphones on. He gets agitated, upset, and can cause his siblings harm through frustration of the outdoor noise. The proposed pitch includes an acoustic fence, but HDC, Environmental Health Department, have said so in their comments on the application that the acoustic fence will have no impact on the volume on the first floors of properties nearby. So what that means is that my family and others are faced with the idea of 75 to 80 decibels every day for as much as 12 hours. The idea that James could struggle with his surroundings in his own home and garden 7 days a week is extremely upsetting to both me and his mother. If this goes ahead, my family and thousands of others are set to lose precious open space with no alternative. This village is already lacking on green space. My children will no longer have a safe space to play sports and games with their friends. For families like mine, immediate access to open spaces within a short walk of home is an absolute necessity. Please don't take this away from us. Think of children like James, whose lives could be significantly impacted from the minority audience through no fault of his own. I'm asking SPC to throw families like mine a lifeline. Consider the needs of all the community and not the minority. Act now to stop us losing this wonderful community space and suffering all the harms that will come from the 3G pitch. Don't let the local community be fenced out, priced out, and sold out by this development. Thank you.
And the last member of the public to speak is Jeff Schoon.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just there were 5 speakers that were going to speak. I think you've missed out one.
Oh, did I jump from Roger to Helen? In which case, Chris Woodrow is...
Go last. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Good evening, Chairman. Thank you. HDC's Statement of Community Involvement, the SCI, states HDC is committed to assisting anyone who wishes to get involved in the Council's planning process, including planning applications. The SCI sets out the ways in which the council will engage with residents, communities, other interested parties to ensure as many people as possible are able to have their say on decisions and that affect them. Some of the matters not usually considered during the planning decision are covenants. So my point on this occasion is on this basis that the covenant should be considered due to its applied longevity, wider implication and impact on existing users and in itself a potential breach. The covenant identifies and defines the location as the property. The covenant goes on to explain usage as no part of the property may be used otherwise than for the purpose of public open space. Creation of a 3G pitch for a specific user group will exclude other user groups and therefore not be available as public open space, thus contrary to the covenant. Okay, my second point, I bring to your attention a potential conflict of interest or loyalty which may have arisen for council trustees of the Guild CIO. The Charities Commission puts the charity interest before residents with statements such as, all trustees have a legal duty to act only in the interest, or the best interest of the charity. Where a trustee is elected or appointed by a connected organisation or other third party, they must act only in the best interests of the charity in carrying out their trustee roles. The Charities Commission statements are a contradiction to the SPC Councillor Code of Conduct, which states to act solely in the public interest, to act and take decisions partially, fairly, using the best evidence and without bias, accountable to the public for their decisions and actions. Information should not be withheld from the public unless there is a clear and lawful reason for doing so. Also, at the commencement of the Guild CIO agreement in 2020, I recall, being a councillor, that legal advice was sought regarding interest, conflict of interest and loyalty. The advice highlighted that councillor trustees taking part in parish business could incorporate bias and possible predetermination to achieve and influence the charity roles, their roles that they must achieve. I request a copy of this information be reviewed by SPC and made public. Going forward, I propose councillor trustees of the Guild withdraw from their further discussion and decision-making regarding this application, thus removing any doubt of a conflict of interest or loyalty. I request remaining parish councillors consider the application, including all matters brought to councillors' attention. My last point. While I was an F&GP chair, I mentioned the Guild CIO quarterly report, and SPC received a letter on the subject and was told that quarterly report was never to be mentioned again. So, contrary to Mr. Neal's comments about being open and information that SPC has all seen, I was told I wasn't allowed to share it anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last speaker is Chris Rudrow.
There we go. Cool. Okay, good evening. So following on from Roger and Michael's comments, I'm going to provide a summary of the financials, the development of this location and kind of thereby the risk. So I've looked at the data financial reports of both the Parish Council, the Guild and other business plans publicly available for 3G pitches. So I've not seen any business plan from the Guild CIO, so I've kind of used reasonable best assumptions. So the 3G pitch located at the Guild aims to solve two main problems. Number one, the financial stability and independence of the Guild. Number two, the condition of the playing fields used to the Royals FC matches. So the Guild has circa 800 grand of S106 money to spend on pitch improvements by 2028. This is confirmed by HDC. This includes 30k already budgeted and a bid for Muga improvements. So a 3G pitch costs anywhere between 1.1 and 1.3 million pound to build. So Horsham Football Clubs cost 1.3 million. So that leaves a deficit of 200 to 500 grand that needs to be found before you even start. The Guild have received grants of about 60k per annum from the Parish Council since 2023, and the Parish Council have only budgeted 40k for the Guild this year. The Parish Council have already confirmed they've not committed to provide the shortfall. So with the public scrutiny of the proposal and the rise in council tax this year, any public money to fund a 3G pitch is unlikely to have public support. For running and maintaining a 3G pitch, this viability is based on maximum usage. Other local 3G pitches are on the sites of secondary schools or academies, which already provide a user group for during the day. They therefore also benefit from an existing maintenance workforce and a secondary funding stream. It's therefore only justifiable if it can succeed as an independent commercial proposal. Taking the Forest School pitch as an example, conditions were placed on its usage times for both weekend and weekday. Similar conditions are likely to be imposed here, if not more restrictive due to close proximity to houses. The business cases I reviewed use an average price of £66 per hour, which gives a maximum yearly income of about 66k, assuming 1,000 hours a year usage. This price gives an average of concession users as well as full paying externals. If you add in operational expenses such as a sink fund for eventual surface replacement of 30k a year, employees to manage the site, maintenance, etc., this already makes the concept operate at a slight loss. Any extra outlay for user damage, antisocial behaviour, inflation, etc., makes it lose even more money. This assumes the surface replacement is even possible with the EU infill ban. This 1,000-hour-a-year usage is conditioned to be split across multiple user groups by Sports England. Assuming a 25% split between the FC, Royals, community groups and external hires, this gives the Royals about 250 hours a year. Considering they have current weekend exclusive use for matches, and this is likely to not be allowed, it's likely they'll end up with less playing time than they have on the current grass pitches. It's therefore a far cheaper and practical solution to improve the field drainage and keep usage as it is. Using a quote I commissioned, this could be done for under 100k. For a pure financial and usage point of view, the only way to make this a viable solution is to find a location where the pitch can be used at maximum capacity, which necessitates it being outside the village centre. The Guild have already shown they're able to manage an off-site location with the Laurie Apted building, so this could be a viable proposal. So to summarise, if the pitch of the Guild does go ahead, not only does it remove the green space of the community, it potentially all becomes a financial drain. So I urge the Council to consider this in any decision making. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I'm going to resume standing orders now, which means we get on with the meeting under the agenda. So I'll now move on to item 21, which is apologies for absence.
Apologies received from councillors Lewis, Stannard and Phillips.
Yes.
Sorry, and Slowly.
Thank you. I'll now move on to item 22, declarations of interest.
Sorry, and councillor Knott.
And councillor Knott. I'll now move on to declarations of interest. So any councillors that have a declaration of interest to the item that's being discussed must raise their hand and also announce the declaration.
Declaration item 23, Mr. Chairman.
And that is for
The all-weather pitch planning application and
as you are a trustee of the Guild. Councillor Vickers.
Yes, Chairman, just to say that if this application goes to committee, I'm a district councillor, but I should be taking advice from the monitoring officer, chief solicitor, about my position, whether I have a conflict of interest.
Right.
So it's quite possible I won't be able to take part in the debate or vote, but I would be able to speak as a member of the public.
Okay. All right, that's noted. Thank you. Councillor Cole? Yes, and I must... Oh, can you use the microphone?
As Councillor Watkins, myself.
And I too, as I'm a trustee of the Guild, I too have an interest as a trustee, and therefore for item B, as we consider the council's position on this, those councillors that have had an interest, that's Councillor Watkins, Cole, myself, and Councillor Brown. What was your?
My son plays for Royals.
Your son plays for the
My
Royals.
son plays for Royals.
Our view on that is that most parents would have somebody involved, so I don't think there is a need for exclusion for Councillor Brown. Yes? No?
as the item being considered is a planning application by Southwater Guild CIO, whether there is an interest or not, I appreciate Councillor Brown has raised a connection, but I think when we get to the item, the consideration for council is whether it compels Southwater Guild CIO to withdraw the application.
Right, okay. Just to clarify then, we will go to item A first. Item B, Councillor Cole, Watkins and myself will have to remove ourselves from the chamber to allow the next part of that. And then the rest of the committee will have to then appoint a chair in my absence. We'll now move on to item 23A, which is to receive and consider the report. Do you want to talk us through that?
So you've all received a copy of the report, which provides an assessment of whether Southwater Parish Council should take action to compel Southwater Guild CIO to withdraw its planning application for the installation of a 3G all-weather pitch at the Guild playing fields. Planning application DC 241997. So, as you're aware, residents who attended and made representation at the Planning Committee meeting of 5th of February requested the Council compel Southwater Guild CIO to withdraw its planning application for the installation of a 3G all-weather pitch. So at the Planning Committee, non-material planning considerations were raised in addition to material planning considerations, which only the Council can address. And as advised by the Chairman of that committee, we're here to hear and consider the views raised by the residents. To address some of the concerns raised by residents, I have provided responses to some of the residents who've emailed in. I think just to come to the legal considerations, I appreciate the covenants have been raised and mentioned. It's important to distinguish between planning law and land law. So planning law, the application for the 3G pitch is subject to assessment by Horsham District Council as the local planning authority, and land covenants and or contractual matters between the Parish Council and Southwater Guild CIO are not a material planning consideration in this process. The land covenants, the Guild playing field remains owned by SPC, contrary to some of the misinformation and some of the emails I've received that there was confusion whether the Parish Council owned the land. This land is subject to covenants in the 1986 conveyance, requiring its use for community purposes. So the Council has received legal advice from Surrey Hill solicitors confirming that an all-weather pitch aligns with this purpose, as has it received confirmation from Horsham District Council's Head of Legal Services and the Directorate of Economic Development that have confirmed that the sports facilities qualify under the term community centre. Now, looking at the request from residents which asked the Council to compel and consider making Southwater Guild CIO withdraw the planning application, the leisure management agreement in place does not contain any provisions that require the CIO to obtain SPC's consent for a planning application. It doesn't allow SPC to compel withdrawal once an application has been submitted, and it does not provide SPC with automatic rights to terminate the agreement based on a planning application submission, as confirmed in the legal advice. For the Council to terminate the leisure management agreement, the only mechanism available to the Parish Council to terminate this would be through termination by notice, which is the Council serving a 12-month notice to terminate the agreement. However, this would require SPC to assume all responsibilities for the Guild and the Laurie Epted building, along with substantial compensation payments to Southwater Guild CIO. Alternatively, it would be to terminate for default, so SPC may attempt to terminate the leisure management agreement if Southwater Guild CIO is in default. However, given that the CIO is indeed acting within its remit under its Schedule 1, which encourages planning for increased facilities, establishing a default would be highly challenging and legally disputable. So in that schedule, it does encourage the CIO to plan for increased facilities at the Guild, subject to funding and land availability. The leisure management agreement does not provide the Parish Council with authority to prevent such planning efforts. In the agreement, it obliges the CIO to comply with legal requirements for development, but does not impose an obligation to seek SPC's consent before submitting a planning application. And the leisure management agreement does not grant the parish council direct control over planning applications, reinforcing that the CIO is within its rights to seek planning permission independently. So I think it's important to highlight that if the council is minded to force the withdrawal of this application via termination of the leisure management agreement, this would have some significant financial and operational consequences, which in the report have been highlighted. So things to bear in mind. In terms of addressing sort of public consultation concerns, I think this has been in public domain and it's discussed at a council meeting in February 2020. It's been on our website in our business plan. Likewise, as part of the public consultation carried out in 2022, the infrastructure delivery plan, and then also highlighted in the neighbourhood plan, and consultations carried out in 2013 and 2009 in the action plan consultations. Just to highlight the role of the local planning authority, the council is not a decision maker for this planning application. The responsibility lies with Horsham District Council as the local planning authority, and residents do have the right to submit comments both in support and objection through the District Council's planning portal. One of the queries that's been raised as to why the planning committee did not comment on the planning application, and it's been the council's long-standing policy not to comment on planning applications concerning its own land or buildings and its planning committee. It's just following kind of the process that has always been taken in relation to its own land and buildings. As you'll see in the report, I've tried to address some of the concerns that have been raised by residents in relation to conflicts of interest. I know some of the residents that have spoken tonight have also emailed in, and I have responded to them in detail. But as it's been raised again tonight, just to go over the conflicts of interest and role of council-appointed trustees, there is no identified breach of the local government code of conduct concerning parish councillors serving as CIO trustees. The report, I go into detail, and I've responded to the residents with the same points. So I think for me to read through all of them,
Can that your report there? Can that be a report that's circulated to residents and have free access to it?
Aspects of it can. I think there's some information here that would need to be redacted first.
Right. Because it does address a lot of the queries that residents have raised. I would think it addresses most, if not all of them. And rather than you having to read all of them out verbatim, I think it would be good if we can publish that.
So, I mean, I'll just come back to the land covenants then. So, a few residents have sort of raised the point in relation to and reference to public open space and the land covenants. So, as I've said, land covenants aren't a material planning consideration in this process, but the council does need to consider the concerns raised by residents. In this respect, the reference made to public open space, firstly, the land is not held as public open space. It was transferred to the council pursuant to section 124 of the Local Government Act 1972, and that's just part of its permitted use. And Surrey Hill Solicitors confirms that an all-weather pitch aligns with the covenants of the land, as does Horsham District Council. So, but in view of the concerns, the council has instigated contacting the Piper Trust in response to some of the statements made by a few residents of potential legal action, just to clarify and understand the position of the Piper Trust. So, I think coming back to the main sort of item to be considered here, now that you've received the report, is just to understand the council's position and take into account the residents' concerns. And with the information that you have and the legal advice received, is whether the council considers taking action and forcing Southwater Gill CIO to withdraw the planning application, or whether it should allow the local planning authority to determine the outcome.
Right, thank you for that. As I explained, that when we move on to item B, which where the council will decide, those councillors that are trustees will have to remove themselves from the meeting and appoint a chairman for that time. As you heard from the executive officer, the questions that have been asked are, as I say, complicated in that there are so many different views about different aspects of what has happened. What has happened is in effect that the council gave a license, gave the running of the space by the leisure centre and that area to the Guild to run it under license, which was for 20 years. They have done a sterling job in renovating the old premises. It is now a much less of a burden, and hope to be no burden at all on the residents. It was a good move in that it really did benefit. What's happened now is that the Guild have decided that they would put an application in for an all-weather pitch on part of the land. That application is a planning matter. And it's worth remembering anybody can put a planning application in for anything they want to do. It has to go through a planning process. It doesn't mean that they automatically get permission to do it. It doesn't mean that what they've put down automatically gets advised. The planning authority, which is Horsham District Council, will make that judgment. What we've got in front of us tonight for council to consider is that whether or not, and this is what was asked by the residents, that council can force the Guild CIO to either withdraw, which will result in a cancellation of the contract, and also there will be the inevitable consequences of that. The council have not decided and is not deciding whether or not it approves or objects to this application. Tonight is purely whether or not the council wish to cancel the contract, the license agreement with the Guild CIO in order to cancel, to withdraw the planning application. So I'll ask, are there any councillors that wish to just clarify anything before I and two other councillors have to remove ourselves? Councillor Barron.
I suppose what I'm very disappointed about is that we've never had a forecast from the Guild financially. And actually, the last gentleman spoke very well about the numbers. And I understand exactly what this document is about, but I do not know if they have the funding. Is the amount of S106 money available? Is it going to cover this? So what I'm really concerned about is where we're saying, if we break the agreement, is in a year's time, if this goes ahead, obviously it has to go to planning, will there be the funds, or halfway through the job will they run out of money? And that really concerns me, that we've not seen anything to prove that this project can be paid for.
Within the Guild's reports, they have provided the council with their 5-year forecast and business plans.
So I've never seen that.
They have been distributed within different meetings. Can I just ask you to be quiet, please? They have been distributed between meetings, But I'll go back to my original thing. What council is to consider this evening is not whether or not it's a good idea, whether it's financially viable or whatever. It's whether or not council decide to cancel the agreement between the Guild CIO and Southwater Parish Council.
Mr. Chairman, can I, I'm a bit confused because this says report to consider request of residents requesting the council require Southwater Guild to withdraw the planning application. Where did it come into play that we were going to talk about dissolving the agreement? I thought this was about, see, that's not what.
The advice from our solicitors is that that we will have to terminate the agreement with the Guild CIO in order to cancel and withdraw this application. That's within the pack.
I've read the document.
Yes.
I understand the document. It's a very clear document, but I wasn't aware that that was part of this discussion of cancelling the agreement, because that is a big deal to me.
Yes, to withdraw this planning application, we would need to cancel the agreement between the Guild CIO and Southwater Parish Council.
Oh.
I think if you are going to start debating it, I think you should move on to item B.
Okay.
Excuse yourself.
And on that note, I think it's time for Councillor Watkins, Councillor Cole, and myself to leave the room. You will have to appoint a chairman in my absence.
In the absence of chairman and vice chairman of the council, I would suggest that the chairman of the finance committee
I agree.
take the place as chair. We'll just need to propose, second, and vote that in as well.
I propose.
Seconded by Councillor Brown, and then a vote. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me clarify, please, now what this next stage is. I'll have to read this out because it's quite important. It's for the council to consider its position in relation to the views raised by residents, i.e. yourselves, at the Planning Committee on the 5th of February 2025 and subsequently by email correspondence, and the request that the council compel Southwater Guild CIO to withdraw its planning application DC 24/1997 for an all-weather 3G pitch at the Guild. That's the exact reason why we have called this meeting, and this is what we are now at the stage where certain councillors who were also trustees have left the meeting, and it's now for council to discuss and debate, if necessary, this particular issue. And we very much would appreciate for the audience to allow council to express their views. Thank you. Councillor Flores-Moore.
I don't know what to say, to be honest. I'm just, there's got to be an alternative than just to say that we cancel the agreement just to get this stopped than putting an application through, surely. I mean, this is like, it's taken me back a bit. I understand the document and the consequences and things like that, but that's quite drastic. Really is a drastic thing, all because of a planning application. I understand what the residents are saying, especially the gentleman with the child that's obviously autistic. I know where he's coming from. Years ago, there was a thing about the funfair there, and my stance about the funfair still stands as today. There was a comment made about that no concerns were made about the 3G pitch. That's incorrect, because I know for a fact that questions were asked about the open space for 3G. How do the public get on there? Do they have the room of everything to use? And they said, no, it'd be fenced off. And several times were asked. And also, what groups? How could it be for one group? It should be not solely for that particular group, and other groups where they got the evidence that they're going to do that. So there was concerns asked at meetings about that, because I know I asked it. I'm just flummoxed about the fact that, you know, legally we have to either terminate the contract, stop the application going through, challenge it, and it doesn't look like there's any alternative. If we feel that it should go through and go to the planning to make the decisions, and as a councillors, we haven't decided as individuals whether we vote against or for the Fiji pitch. I know how I feel, but I can't say that here, but I just feel a bit concerned about the way this is. Because if we terminate the contract, and I remember many times having big battles here where the public said, you cannot run the leisure centre. That's why we put it out to a charity to run it. So now you're saying to us, well, if you don't challenge it, or if you challenge it, you've got to terminate the contract. That's defeating the object. We had all these fights years ago. We were called all the names under the sun, and we're back where we started.
Thank you, Councillor Flores-Moore. Councillor Vickers?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Very briefly, myself and Councillor van der Borg have had a number of emails from residents explaining their concerns, which we listened to. There are a number of legal points in some of those emails, which I have passed on to Horsham District Council's legal department. I'm still waiting for a response. Some of the emails I've been sent have been forwarded to their head of planning, and those have been put on the planning portal. I'm in a difficult position here because I am a district councillor, so I won't be voting on this, but if it comes to the planning committee, members of the public must come and speak and voice those same concerns again, so that the members of the planning committee who will make that decision will hear what those concerns are. The planning officers haven't yet come to a decision on what recommendation they're likely to be giving on this application. So, you know, we're not there yet. But I hear what you say. I'm sure our other district councillors who are here have heard what you've said. But it's not down to just individuals. It will be down to that whole planning committee, should it go before the planning committee. I share Councillor Flores-Moore's concerns about terminating the legal, the lease, the contract. We've had huge problems maintaining the GIL when it was the leisure centre, financial costs. So I wouldn't want that to happen. But I hear what you say. I understand your concerns. And it will be an opportunity for you to make those concerns known to the individual members of that planning committee. Thank you.
Any other comments, councillors? Any other questions?
I just want to clarify that this is the only way that we can stop this. You know, if as a council we were minded to, the only way that this can come to a conclusion is for us to cancel, terminate the contract. Is that?
Yes. So the legal advice.
Just a minute. I've just asked.
So the legal advice.
I've just asked a question.
The legal advice is quite clear and confirms that the parish council does not have the power to compel the withdrawal of the application unless it looks to terminate the leisure management agreement by giving 12 months' notice.
Sorry. I mean, I know it's
Councillor
not
Brown.
you know, we obviously aren't asking the Guild wanting to ask the Guild to remove themselves. Can we, rather than request them to do it, can we maybe suggest they remove it, but we're not more of a recommendation that they withdraw it, so that, you know, then that's their choice, and then we're not necessarily being neutral, depending on how this vote goes, but we are supporting or not supporting, depending on which way you vote. I mean, is that an option rather than request?
Demanding.
Yeah, instead of demand. I mean, I understand what you're saying, the legal advice says.
But that doesn't sit well with me. There's got to be an alternative, surely.
Councillor Everard.
From my perspective, I completely understand what some of the public have said. I myself have used that. I think some of the public and what we have said today also understand that if we were to terminate that lease, that would have a devastating effect on that piece of land anyway, because we'd run into another big problem. So I firmly believe that there should be a further debate or further debates on, is a 3G pitch suitable? Yes. Is it in the right place? Yes or no? We have to debate that. Can we look at the ground and do we put money into draining it? Is that a good idea? Is that actually going to be beneficial? Because yes, it will allow them to play more games, but we all know what our weather is like, and will that actually really benefit them? So, you know, there are, I think, lots of other things that should be debated first before anyone does anything as serious as terminating an agreement, which will definitely cause a problem with it, even to the point where I don't know how many people have looked at the plans. I'm sure you guys have a lot. Where the pitch is actually situated on the ground of that park. I have had a look myself, and I firmly believe that even if it did go ahead, that it could be relocated to still give more green space to people to be able to walk around. And I know that wouldn't necessarily overcome the issues of perhaps the noise or the whistles, and that has to be debated as well, whether there's certain times that are put on there. But, you know, I don't think we can terminate an agreement that's going to cause a problem. I think there is another way that has to be looked at, and whether that is where it is in a different vise, or whether or not that's another piece of land that gets put forward that someone has to look at, and we say, right, we're going to go there and put money into doing that. And that has to be supported, and there has to be a bit of give and take on both sides. I don't think you can have one just saying that is what it's going to be. But,
Thank you, Councillor Everard. I mean, I think I'd like to remind everyone in the room that the reason why actually we're here is not to go through the whys or wherefores, whether we're against the plan application or not, and all the things that the great points that you guys have come up with. It's actually about the legal advice that we've had from our solicitors that are telling us that we, following your request for us to cancel or compel the GIL to remove or retract their planning application. That's all it's actually about tonight. It's an interesting decision, because obviously the legal advice that we have been given, and we have that in writing, I know that's going to be shared with you as well, is that we should not, we cannot be compelled as a council to do what you're asking us to do. Obviously, HDC will be their decision. It's their planning application. They're the authority that deal with this. It is not our decision whether you agree with it or not. It is really about, you've asked us to talk with us, and obviously, and you've asked us in no uncertain terms if we can actually get that retracted from the Guild, if they can remove that plan application. We do not have the power to do that. I'm sorry, no. No. Well, obviously, you've had we had lots of we had 5 of yourselves come forward, and with your proposals and your thoughts, the previous chairman obviously made it clear that that was your opportunity to speak.
There are 350 of us,
Mm.
not just 5 of us, not just the 30 or 40 of us sitting here, 350.
Mm. Yes. I'll ask the executive officer to comment.
So, I mean, standing orders, once the formal meeting commences, as you were asked at the start of the meeting by the chairman, that the council does need to commence its business. We can't allow the meeting to devolve into a complete discussion with public. This is a council meeting, not a public discussion. Coming back to the key points here, what the council's here to look at is to establish, we've established the legal position. The planning application, just because it gets, if it were to proceed to the local planning authority, there's no guarantees the planning authority will even approve it. Residents have the ability to express their views. As residents have pointed out this evening, that there's been 350 objections on the planning portal. The district council will take that into account when they hear it at their committee. You have the ability to book in to speak at the district council's planning committee when it goes there. As Councillor Vick has pointed out, the planning officers at the local planning authority have not made a recommendation as yet. So you're still able to express your views. You can book into the planning authority. From the council's perspective, the legal advice is quite clear, and there are constraints and financial risks and operational burdens if it were to proceed in compelling the Guild to withdraw its application. So based on the legal advice received to the council, the parish council should maintain its neutral stance and allow Horsham District Council to assess the application and go through the proper planning process. Now, one concern that was raised by a resident tonight was the financial viability of the proposal. This isn't a planning material consideration, but I do appreciate that that is something that the charity will need to take into account. Whether the planning application is approved or not, it may not be approved by the local planning authority. If it were approved, then viability of it would now need to be assessed by the charity. One of the residents pointed out that there was circa 840,000 of Section 106, and based on the current cost of building a 3G pitch, there is a shortfall. Now, that is something that the charity will need to consider. So if it did get approval by the local planning authority, the next step for them would be to understand how they fund that gap. So that hasn't been discussed or considered by the council at this stage. The council has neither approved or refused support to the Gill in that respect. So financial viability and feasibility will be something the charity will need to look at. But at this current stage, there is a planning application that is with the local planning authority, and the council is in a position where it's considering the requests raised, which is whether it compels Southwater Gill CIO to withdraw its planning application or not.
From our solicitors. That's the simple question.
Simple question is, why couldn't our solicitors give us an alternative instead of demanding it? I mean, I would like it made clear to the public, if we approve it to be, to let it go to planning, that it's not, for myself, I haven't agreed or disagreed, I'm neutral about the planning, that I don't want them to go away thinking that they've all approved that the planning, that it should go ahead, because we haven't had a chance to discuss it and it won't be. But I just feel really, it's sort of black and white. You either approve it and let it go to planning, or don't approve it and then break the agreement, and that's going to be disastrous.
May I remind you that the application's already gone into planning, so that's already been submitted.
Yeah, but you're asking
yes.
us to vote on whether we asked then it to be retracted.
That was a question. That
Yeah.
was what obviously the residents asked us to do,
Yeah.
to compel CIO to withdraw their application. So we need a proposal, don't we? Yeah. Well, with that in mind, obviously we need to draft a proposal, which we will then vote on as councillors. Would you like me to do that? Between the executive officer and myself, that Southwater Parish Council agrees with the advice from our solicitors and therefore will not compel the Guild CIO to withdraw their application. That's the proposal. So,
May the public be allowed one there's 50 of us here. May we be allowed one representation between us?
This doesn't work that way.
no, it doesn't work that way. No. I'm sorry. Okay, well, it's now time for our vote. And that's the proposal.
We certainly are, believe me, we are.
Just start going through these. If they keep interjecting, we'll just abandon the meeting if they keep going.
Yes.
The question is too narrow.
We're not asking you to get rid of the CIO. We just want them to rethink what they're going to do.
You could have chosen a far more imaginative question. You have cynically defined and framed the meeting around an incredibly narrow question.
Yes.
A different question would have had a far better discussion and a far more fruitful response. You could work with the whole community on this. You're choosing not to.
I must remind members of the public that public participation session has ended. Under our standing orders, once the formal meeting begins, only councillors may contribute to discussions unless we invite a member of the public to speak. I ask, please, for your cooperation. So we will now move to the proposal.
Chairman, just one quick one. There's obviously some very strong feelings about what's going on, and I think we need to make it very, very clear, all right, that amongst us all here, we do understand what is being said, okay, and I understand what you said about taking other legal advice and all the rest of it, but from what we are put on the table at the moment, as it is said, we cannot afford to let something go that's going to cause that. We selectively, most of us here have all said it needs to have a further debate. And there are people here that know exactly how it works. Okay, even if we did say one way or the other, we can easily be overruled by our friends in Walsham District Council anyway. So what we say, they can just take and put to one side. I totally get what you say. You know, I've lived in the village for a long, long time myself and have used the fields. I get it. But I still, as I said before, strongly believe that as much as what happens now, we need to have a stronger debate on the whys and whats of whether it's good, bad or indifferent. And everyone's going to have a different understanding. Everyone's going to have their own personal thoughts of why, what, whether it's light, noise, family, usage, whatever that may be. But there are certain repercussions of us doing something else which would definitely cause a problem. And it's not that we don't support you, you know, because we do. It's just that at the moment we're in a position where we have to do something, but that doesn't mean that is what we are saying, that we are putting our stamp on it and saying yes, by any means of the imagination.
So let me repeat, councillors. The proposal is that Southwater Parish Council agrees with the advice from its solicitors and therefore cannot be compelled to ask the Guild's CIO to withdraw its planning application. Those in favour?
Mine's reluctantly. Sorry, I just can't afford.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean.
Yeah.
So to clarify the proposal, the proposal was for the council to agree to the legal advice provided, to take no action, allow the local planning authority to determine the outcome of the planning application. Is that correct?
Yes, so that's
To move to a vote, you need someone to second that proposal.
right. Can I have a seconder, please? Erica, Councillor Haddon.
So it's now a substantive motion, so you now need to vote on that.
Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Oh, you proposed it, so it's 5 in favour. Any against?
Against? 2 against, no abstentions.
So that proposal was carried.
Thank you.
So we can invite back.
Yes, yes. Can you invite back? You pop and get the other guys. No, not yet. We're waiting for the others to return. Or should we close it?
Really need to do the last item.
Yeah. Right.
I think Councillor Moore's on his way back.
Should we let people go, I think? Yeah. Oh, they're getting up to go.
I think he's coming back in, so
Yeah.
we'll move on to... Yeah, we've got one more item.
Which was...
Date of next meeting.
Yes. Yes, well, I think that's... Yeah, okay.
8:59. So 8:59, councillors Watkins, Cole, and Moore returned. The chairman resumed. So item 24, Mr. Chairman.
To call order, I just need to attend to item 24, which is the date of the next full council meeting, which is the 19th of March 2025, and I now consider this meeting closed. Thank you for your attendance.
Meeting end time 8:59.